Good evening. I would like to call the Monday, July 12th, 2021 Kent County Public School Board of Education open session meeting to order. The first item on the agenda tonight is to approve the agenda. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Costa. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Sullivan. Any comments, further discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. The next item on the agenda is to move into closed session. The Kent County Public Schools Board of Education members, this board, Dr. Karen Couch, the superintendent, Mr. Dan Hushin, supervisor of human resources, and Gail Manley, executive assistant to the superintendent, will move to closed session under General Provisions Article 3-305B to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, as well as any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
I motion we go into closed session.
We have a motion by Ms. McGee. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Dr. Costa. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We are going to move into closed session. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to open back up the July 12th, 2021 open session, second portion of the meeting tonight. The first item on the agenda is to report on the closed session. The Kent County Public Schools Board of Education members, this board, Dr. Karen Couch, the superintendent, Mr. Dan Hushin, supervisor of human resources, and Gail Manley, executive assistant to the superintendent, met in closed session under General Provisions, Article 3-305B, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, as well as any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. This session was for information and discussion purposes only. No action was taken. Personnel actions will be voted upon by this board at the end of the superintendent's report. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Buckle, welcome tonight. If I can ask you the first task tonight to lead us in the pledge, that'd be great. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes for the June 14th, 2021 open session meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes of the open session of June 14th.
Ms. McGee has the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Johnson. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Couch.
Okay. Thank you, President Getz, members of the board. I have 3 items that I'd like to report on this evening. The first of which is the update on the community input meeting for renaming the Kent County High School Black Box Theater. Last week, we had our first community input meeting at the Mainstay. We did have a small group. There was a recommendation for renaming the Black Box. We will review that information, and we will have our second public input meeting on Wednesday at the Kent County High School Auditorium at 6:30. So if any of you are interested in participating, that will be our last community input meeting. The second item I'd like to report on is the program that we are participating in at Kent County High School, the Achieving Academic Equity and Excellence for Black Boys. The implementation team has had several meetings, and they will schedule additional meetings during the summer to implement the program. We plan to do a presentation at the August board meeting, because I think that that will be good information for you to review at that time.
Great.
And then finally, just an update on ESSER 3 grant money. That is for the COVID-19 money and also the reopening guidelines. We met with principals to identify and outline our needs for the grant. And so that information will be presented at the July 22nd work session that we plan to have. And we also plan to get community input at that point in time. Our plan will be to have our work session at 5 o'clock. We should be done at 6:15, and then the community input would be from 6:30 to 7:30 on the 22nd of July.
Dr. Couch, just for the public, they may not understand, because I didn't get it at first.
Okay,
What that stands for and what it is.
I don't know what the acronym stands for. It's just the ESSER 3. That's just the monies that we get for COVID, and it's basically, pardon? Okay, every student succeed. Okay, very good. This money, but basically, that doesn't really give a lot of information. It's basically the monies that we get for COVID. And it's a portion of that money is for learning loss. So we have to demonstrate how we're going to utilize that money for learning loss, but also it's to help us provide opportunities for summer school, after-school programs, those kinds of things that are going to help us with getting our kids back on track.
Yeah, so it's basically the educational component of the CARES Act.
Yes.
Okay. But I'm just saying, in the beginning, when you were saying it a couple months ago, I thought it was a word, ESSER, and I'm like, Okay, what is that? Okay,
ESSR, yeah.
I got it.
Okay, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is personnel actions. Mr. Hushin.
Thank you, President Getz, Dr. Couch, members of the board. Each month, the board receives a report of stated personnel actions that are discussed during closed session, and we vote on those actions in open session. The administration is seeking approval of the stated personnel actions from closed session.
Do you want to state the amendment with the correction on the guidance secretary?
Yes, it is for, we are changing from Kent County Middle School to Kent County High School.
So recommendation is to approve the personnel with stated amendment.
Great. Okay, this is an action item, as Dr. Couch mentioned. Do we have a motion to approve the stated personnel actions as stated?
I move that we approve the personnel actions as stated.
Dr. Costa has the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sullivan. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the personnel actions are approved as presented. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public participation. Ms. Manley? Yes. May I have the names, please? Okay, we have stated rules for public participation. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. Comments about the actions or statements of individual staff members are not appropriate for public comments and should be referred to the superintendent of schools or processed through available channels. If submitting written testimony, speakers are requested to provide a copy to the president. Please remember that this is an opportunity for the community to address their comments to the board. It is not an opportunity for dialogue. If you have questions that need an answer, please contact the superintendent or write a letter to the Board of Education, and a response will be sent back to you. Please turn your cards into Gail Manley, which I have cards here, so we can proceed. The first person I have listed is Dr. Buckle. Tammy.
Proud of you, Sam. So, good evening. My name is Tammy Buckle. I'm a graduate at Kent County High School, mother of 2 Kent County Public School students, and wife of Mark Buckle, Kent County Public School employee. There's 2 banners behind you. They are the mission and the vision of Kent County Public Schools. Just as you are positioned now, I feel that you've turned your backs to the mission and the vision of Kent County Public Schools if you vote to approve the revised board advisory policy this evening. I'm recommending that you vote nay until you can actually further structure the policy and give it the focus that it deserves. The existing active policy has been overlooked for 15 years. 5 months ago, I asked Mr. Getz about the Board Advisory Committee. He referred me to the Ethics Committee. And I said, no, Mr. Getz, I want to know the names of the Advisory Committee members. So he then referred me to Dr. Couch. So our president may actually have not been aware of an active policy in which he oversees, and especially one that involves collaboration of parents and teachers with the Board of Education. So this obviously was very concerning to me. So I ask you tonight, are you confident that you fully comprehend this policy and are prepared to vote for the policy this evening? This is not simply about checking a box for COMAR, but it's about our children, Mr. Brown. We should have a standing citizen advisory committee regardless of a mandate. Several of you have asked, why do we need a CAC? And you state that you're confused. You don't understand the focus of this, which is the exact point for why we need that committee. If you don't understand why we need it, that defines why we need it. This is a committee that's not only tasked with being a forum to channel concerns, but a group that collaborates with the Board of Education. We would actually be given a place to meet as opposed to my office, and a means to communicate with others. We cannot find solutions if you remain resistant to identifying the problems. Many parents do not fall under the existing subject-specific advisory committees. We also need to have a standing citizens advisory committee. Teachers and parents do not speak up due to fear of retaliation. Some Board of Education members may be hesitant to speak up as well. We need a means of a communication that is supportive. When I spoke to one teacher and asked if she would like to attend tonight, she said, I love my school and I love my students and I don't want to get moved. And I heard that multiple times from multiple teachers. And that should never, ever, the concept of involuntarily being transferred should never, ever be the first thought out of somebody's mouth when you ask if there can be help. That fear, there should not be a fear of somebody standing and speaking up. So, and also during the recent retreat, which I attended as well as Mr. Matthews, the main topic, one of the main topics was about community engagement. And guess what? The community was not allowed to discuss that. And Mr. Getch, who referred to the Open Meetings Act, he left out the last sentence that said you do have the option to allow us to speak. You chose not to allow us to speak. So how can we learn about community engagement if we're not allowed to be engaged? So this culture that has been created must end. Mr. Getz, I was very motivated a couple months ago about your passion for requesting an athletic trainer to be added to the budget. And I think we all agree that safety is very important. And you stated that we have a duty to the athletes and that it's not fair, and I quote, it's not fair to kids and it's not fair to parents. But Mr. Getz, it's also not fair to students and parents that we have poor test scores and a lack of diversity among our teachers and our school administrators. Are we truly equipping our students to achieve their highest potential, as that vision statement says behind you? We have a duty not only to our student athletes, but also to all students. So I plead to you, Mr. Getz, if you could apply that same passion and that same prestige of office that you used to get that athletic trainer, if you could apply that to the academics and the culture at Kent County Public Schools. You demanded that request because you were involved and you were present. So where is your urgency now, I ask you? And we as parents have this same passion for changing the schools. We want improving morale. We want increased academic rigor. Ask Sam Buckle how often he does homework. Let's improve the academic rigor. Sorry, Sam. And we want more opportunities for our students. No one surveys us. No one asks us to come to the board meetings. No one asks what our concerns are. So we have no opportunity for discussion. So are we truly failing our students and our community of future leaders? Ms. McGee, you commented at that same board meeting that you were sometimes embarrassed that we don't have an athletic trainer. I'm embarrassed that our superintendent is rarely seen in the schools or in the community. I'm embarrassed that we only have one black teacher at Kent County High School. I'm embarrassed that we let Mr. Brown go. I'm embarrassed that it took until 2020 to realize the importance of an ESL liaison. If Mr. Getz's son was Spanish speaking, would we have a full-time ESL liaison sooner? And I'm embarrassed that Kent County Public Schools is the smallest school system, yet we rank near the bottom. How can you, as a board, actually make decisions about Kent County Public Schools if you're not around and you don't hear our concerns? And this is why we need a standing Citizens Advisory Committee. In conclusion, Dr. Couch, you have allowed a culture to be developed that is insular. We're here to help. You know why these people are here? Because I talked to them, I asked them. These people want to help. And we want to get those kids to have the highest potential that they can. But this can't not be achieved if Dr. Couch allows this insular environment to remain. And we have 5 schools. There is a lot of high schools out there that have the 1,700 or 1,800 kids that we have in our entire county. We should have perfect schools. We have 5 schools. And how often is there superintendent and board members at those schools? How do they know what's going on? You don't. That's why we need this committee. And I'm excited, can you tell, that we can actually do this. But the one thing I ask is that you no longer continue to turn your backs on the mission and the vision of Kent County Public Schools. Go Sam Buckle, and thank you for your time.
The next person for public testimony is Julie Dunlap.
Good evening. So my name is Julie Dunlap. I am a parent of Kent County high school student, just finished his freshman year. And to the board, I've emailed all of you in the last week or so with several questions and concerns. I appreciated your replies to my emails, but I have to say that there's not one person that replied directly to the concerns that I addressed and the heart of the issues that I raised. As an example of clear communication tonight, I'm going to be very clear brief and concise this evening. My goal in speaking tonight is to stress the importance of the need for communication between the Board of Education and our community. Some of you in your replies to me referenced joining the PTA or SOS to get involved in Kent County Public Schools. However, neither of these groups have a clear line of communication with the Board of Education. As you know, the policy already exists, as Dr. Buckle talked about, for us to have a Citizens Advisory Committee. And this would provide an avenue for communication between our community and the Board of Education to address a wide variety of concerns. As Tammy said, we have specific committees, but we do not have a current space to address general concerns and have a conversation. We all have the same goal to make our schools the best they can be. With clear communication between parents, teachers, students, the Board of Ed, and our wider community, we can make a difference. So I urge you to please consider appointing, as the policy dictates the board to do, a Citizens Advisory Committee so that we can open communication and create a space for all of our voices to be heard. Thank you.
Okay, the next person we have is Cheryl Bachman.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Couch, President Getz, members of the board, and Sam. I'm super proud of you. As the new president of the Kent County Teachers Association, I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce our executive board and to make clear our focus for the 2021-2022 school year as an association. First, she's not here, but I did want to thank Ashley Langer for her dedication to her role as KCTA president for so many years. With our election this spring, along with my position as president, Melissa Walters is now serving as vice president. Devin Jenkins will be serving as secretary, and Krista Collison is serving as treasurer. We all look forward to working with Dr. Couch and the board. Our focus for the 2021-2022 school year will be on communication. We believe that better, more open communication between the central office, Board of Education, teachers, educational staff, and the community is key to improving our school system. We look forward to resuming our monthly meetings with Dr. Couch and to communicating our needs as educators at these board meetings. I did notice that we've been removed as an agenda item. KCPA used to have its own little chance to stand up and talk. It would be great if we could get that added back. I do plan to speak every month. We would welcome other chances to openly communicate with the community and the board as well, including the Citizens Advisory Committee. Lastly, we have all gone through 16 months of something that we were never trained for. And it would be great to see the same grace that we were asked to give students extended to teachers as we go back to a full school year and have to readjust after a year of relearning everything we had to do. So we just ask for your grace in that situation. And again, we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is board discussion. Sam, would you like to lead us first?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Couch, President Getz, and fellow members of the board. First, I'm super excited for this upcoming term as student member. I've received updates from 3 of the 5 schools within Kent County Public Schools. First off, Galena Elementary. Miss Arlene Redding is currently attending the National Association of Elementary School Principals Conference, which is in Chicago, Illinois. Ms. Redding has also met with John Schratzweiser, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, from the Kent Cultural Alliance to discuss potential mural projects, and Justinian Dispenza from Visual Media on working on the rainforest that is behind the building and also composting within the cafeteria. Construction also continues as they work on the punch list. Next up is Garnett Elementary School. The KEEP program in summer school is off to a great start. And then finally, Rock Hall Elementary School. On Thursday, July 14th, KCPS is renaming the Black Box Theater Community Input meeting is also that night at KCHS at 6:30 p.m. Saturday, July 16th at Ashton Muday, the new Rock Hall Elementary and Galena Elementary School music teacher presents Take Me Back, an outdoor concert, and that's at the Kent County Fair at 7 p.m. And then last week in July, the Rock Hall Elementary School had a reading bus tour where they had book giveaways and community visits. Then finally, on August 2nd, through the 19th, Rock Elementary and Galena Elementary School has these summer academies. It's Monday through Thursday, 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., and all students have transportation included. No updates were given from the high school, Mr. Graff, and the middle school, Dr. Spheri. Before I pass the torch, I wanted to discuss some concerns and updates in which I've been informed upon from fellow peers, parents, and staff. These are things I've heard from the end of the summer, or things that I just continue to be brought up to me by students, and just things I've got sent through email or DM. First is the mask policy. Will Kent County Public Schools adopt the MASDE and CDC procedures, or will we create our own guidelines? As of July 12th, only 52% of Kent County citizens have been fully vaccinated. Although a post did go out on the app, what are the specific guidelines and procedures that we are supposed to follow when we go back in the fall? Next is the implementation of Maryland House Bill 205. For those who do not know, House Bill 205 is requiring each county board of education to ensure that each public school provide, at no charge to students, menstrual hygiene products via dispensers in women's restrooms at the school, requiring the public middle or high school to install menstrual hygiene product dispensers in at least 2 women's restrooms by October 1st, 2022, and all women's restrooms by August 1st, 2025, requiring the state to reimburse a county board for the cost of purchasing and installing menstrual hygiene dispensers. What will this look like for Kent County Public Schools, and how will we continue to provide menstrual equity? Next is the use and implementation of pronouns, preferred names within class rosters and Powerschool. This is pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to kind of preface the continuation to equity for LGBTQ+ community within Kent County Public Schools and beyond, and that's a big push from fellow peers and staff alike. And then next is racial equity and justice. This is just some food for thought. Reviewing all Kent County Public School anti-racism training with reformation and audit to the hiring process, administrative policy, and selective program admissions in search for areas of improvement in equity, inclusion, and diversity. Advance and revamp cultural awareness and competency training for all staff. And finally, provide frequent Kent County Public School Board of Education and School Administration town halls with a focus on promoting transparency with consistent anti-racism action and education policy. Before I kind of state this last comment, I want to thank the board for attending recent ceremonies like the National Junior Honor Society and National Honor Society inductions. I hope to see this attendance at events to kind of remain. The biggest concern heard from students that I reached out to is the lack of attendance to events by board members showing up is key. Before I conclude today, I want to thank students and staff at KCHS for all their help and support throughout the past years. Mrs. Swayze for showing freshman Sam that it's okay to fight for what you believe in. Mr. Evans for pushing me, even at 5 a.m., to study and continue my passion for science. Mrs. McCown for her love for English and literature, which is contagious. Mrs. Knabb, thank you for showing me the effects of service and what it does to your community. Mrs. Krause, without her push for my leadership within student government, I would not be sitting here today. Mrs. Saunders, Ms. Bachman, Mrs. Walters, Mr. King, Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, and beyond. You see, these are just some of the many promising educators within our buildings, and it can be very easy to look over the work, strength, triumph, in which takes place by being a staff member at KCPS. I'm a liaison for students, and I want to be the advocate for not only students, but teachers, and especially those who I pass in the hall every day. I hope to be an individual within the board who can help spark change locally. As I drive into the Board of Ed this evening, seeing teachers, community members, and all show up makes me even more excited for the progression of my term as SMOB. I conclude my comments today with a thank you to all educators, specifically those within KCPS. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckle. Dr. Costa?
At our retreat, we had discussed the possibility of starting a foundation. And I did have, I was going to meet with her, but we decided to have a phone meeting instead. I met with the person in Talbot County Public Schools about, who is in charge of the foundation, and I sent you all an email. I hope you got it today. I'm sorry it was so late. But, and also talked to Sue Hall up at the Kitty Knight House, who has a lot of experience with a foundation, very successful one in a Pennsylvania school district. So we've talked to, Dr. Couch and I have talked briefly about the next step being meeting with Chesapeake Charities and the Midshore Community Foundation to see about how we might embed in those, in one of those foundations, so we don't have to start our own legal entity. But I think we should proceed with this. I think we have a lot of possibility in Kent County, and it would help with some of our challenges. And when I look at other school districts, their foundations, they really are, specific to their school district. And one thing that we have talked about in the last few years is kind of redoing our planetarium at the high school. And that would be an example of something that a foundation, we could have a fund at the foundation to do that, as well as, a fund for mini grants for teachers and maybe field trips and whatever else the community seems to want. In Talbot County, for example, they have a special fund for mental health concerns. So I think we have a lot of possibilities, and I want to continue to follow up on these.
Ms. Sullivan?
I just wanted to sort of speak about the Community Advisory Council, since that's something that everyone here seems interested in, and just let you know that I did. I'm sorry. I can't hear you. No worries. I did do some research into the policy and shared it with other members of the board, and I had written some notes up that I'll just go through. Out of all the districts in Maryland, only 10 appear to have a standing general advisory committee. Can you hear me? Am I still too quiet? Okay. The districts that have them have significantly larger enrollment, more schools, and a larger overall population than Kent County, which makes sense. When you have over 15,000 students and 23 schools, you need to have a way of organizing and funneling all that feedback. I hope that we get closer to that someday, but for now we're small. And the benefits of being small are that you can talk to us directly, you can email us directly, you can attend a board meeting and speak, and we will listen, and you will get feedback almost immediately the following day. You can attend a public hearing on a budget, ask questions, and get answers. You can join a committee that has a specific topic or task that you're interested in helping or finding out more about. The majority of Maryland school districts have topic-specific standing advisory committees and the option to form ad hoc committees or advisory committees as needed. This is also what KCPS has been doing, and we have a number of standing topic-specific committees, like what you mentioned, the Special Education Committee, Tech Committee, Environmental, Calendar, et cetera. And we also have formed ad hoc committees on a number of occasions as needed, and advisory committees when needed, most recently the Black Box Theater Committee, but also for the Facility Strategic Planning Committee, School Improvement Committee, and others. And I encourage you to talk to your principals, talk to your other parents, and as we responded, join your PTAs, participate. Parent engagement is so important in every place other than just in the board meeting. And there is also nothing preventing you from organizing a group like Kent Forward, like Brian Matthews, and like SOS, and developing relationships with us, with the Board of Ed, and talking about what you want to focus on. If you want to focus on morale at the high school, let's organize, and you can talk to us about that. I think that revising the policy is important because it should reflect what we are more accurately doing, and I appreciate everyone coming tonight and telling us their thoughts, so thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Sorry. First, good evening, everyone, once again. I would like to also welcome Sam to the board, and thank you for being representing your peers and the voices of those who, for all our voices, from parents to teachers to students, administration. It's an honor to serve a lot of my close friends prior to their political ambitions served as student members of their boards, and today they have given a lasting impact to the work their counties do. One thing that I did attend this month, the month of June, was the retirement for one of our educators, Angel Lenz, who served our district for 38 years. It was good to attend that event. It was good to see former educators that served our school district. It was good to even share I was able to share some words about my experience with Angel and how she has seen how our educational system has shifted from time to time. Things that we used to do, we no longer do anymore. Testing that we used to have, they're no longer existing. So it was really good to hear the voices from the educators and the students she served and her passion. It often, I reflect on that, that we have these educators out there and all our educators who are willing to go the extra mile. The other day, I was speaking to my friend Ryan Segaviano, who is president of the Patterson Joint Unified School District in Patterson, California. And me and Ryan were talking. We talk about once every 2 weeks. And Ryan paused, and we started asking each other some questions. And one of the questions is that what drives our educational passion, and what is the reason why we said yes to serve? And I was telling Ryan that I believe that what unifies us is closer than we know it. We all strive for the same result. We all strive to improve our district. We all strive to improve our community to be the best that we want it to be. But at times, as we drive that passion, there are times things disunify us for whatever reason. But now I feel is the time to truly repaint our educational foundation. We are at a crossroads in education. Things that we used to do, we can no longer do. But that doesn't mean those things go out the door. I said we must find common ground amongst ourselves as individuals on this board, but find common ground amongst the community we serve, the students we serve. Because believe it or not, our world is filled with so much discontent and society. Boards today are faced with so many changes, so many challenges. I was listening to a podcast the other day, listening to Loudoun County where they had to just stop a whole school board meeting and vote to close public comment because so we're faced with so much. And so I think it's time for us to really unify, really change the stigma, really repaint our educational system to be the top, to be where we used to be, to really change the lives of the students and educators we serve.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. McGee?
I'm kind of winging this, responding to what Mrs. Buckle said, Dr. Buckle, and what Sam said. Some of the concerns that both of you have raised are ones that I share. After Dr. Buckle mentioned, I've looked back at these banners twice, and the thing that gets me, I wouldn't say that Kent County School Board has failed its students in most regards, but collaborative is the one place where I feel where we've fallen down. I agree that there is a lack of communication between the schools and the administration and the board, and the board to the community. I don't know if the Citizens Advisory Committee is the right vehicle. I'm open to sort of fleshing that out and seeing what it would look like. But I do agree that we have to do something to make us all one. I don't want it to be a school-specific issue that necessarily brings a big turnout to a school board meeting, or something bad that brings people out. It's kind of refreshing. I know we haven't been able to meet for a year and a half, but it's refreshing to see a lot of chairs filled. It would be great if people came every month, not necessarily to gripe, but that's part of the communication. I know that I have tried to talk a lot of times one-on-one with teachers, and I get the answer that they don't want to talk because they're worried about the retaliation. But when somebody asks a question and you're trying to get information, I'm only asking because I want to know. I'm not asking because I'm trying to set somebody up for a fall. So I'm just saying that I'm open to somehow making things better. I think it's the beginning of a new school year. There's a lot of new administrations in place. We're coming out of a pandemic, and I can't think of a better time to kind of, I don't want to say start over because we have a strong foundation, but I definitely feel that we, and when I say we, I don't mean just Kent County Board of Education. I mean the whole community, whether you have a kid in school or not, whether you're married to a teacher or not, whether your husband's the bus driver or the custodian, we all have a stake in the product that comes out of our public schools. So I'm going on the record on Monday, July 12th, saying that I'm all ears. I want to hear what people think. There should be no worry of retaliation. I'm a board member, but I'm not that powerful, guys, and I'm always just one person. So I think we all need to step up and get this right. That's my
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McGee. First, Sam, I'd like to also welcome you as well. I appreciate your report, all that you brought with it, with the updates from the schools, especially in the middle of summer, or kind of almost in the middle. So thank you for that and putting that work in, and also bringing in additional topics. I think it's really, really nice to hear, and so I really appreciate that. Just a comment, there seems to be a lot of kind of revving the engines on Kerwin and Blueprint. And there's a lot at the state level, not only with, in Annapolis, but also in with all the school systems and everything. So we're going to, I'm going to be involved on a committee to understand what that looks like. It's huge laws that are put into place. There's a lot that's going on there trying to figure out what that looks like for all the school systems. So I'll be involved from that standpoint. I also want to just reiterate all the comments that are made regarding involvement. It is nice to see seats filled. I mean, when we first got back in here, it was empty. And so, thank you to everyone for coming out, for the folks that also commented, coming up. Certainly we definitely have a lot to look at and a lot to think about. So thank you for that. Okay, the next item on the agenda portion is education services. The first item up in that portion is district recovery plan update. I see Ms. Giacomowicz coming down.
Good evening, President Getz, Dr. Couch, members of the board. Welcome, Sam, and congratulations, and thank you for your passion and commitment to want to serve. This first portion of my report is basically to give you an update of where we are with our recovery plan in the summer. As you know, we've done a lot of innovative and creative approaches to try to begin to address the learning loss. So what I'd like to do is just share with you a quick overview of some of these pieces and where we are. As you know, we offered the first CTE academies at our high school, and anything that is funded through the grants, we're required to have both pre and post data. And for our CTE academies, I'd like to give a shout out to Mr. King, who was instrumental in making them successful. For their data collection, they basically gave surveys, and the goal was to give an awareness to be sure that our students had an opportunity to have an understanding of the various academies. At the start of the survey, at the start of the academies, it seemed that there was an interest, and particularly in the engineering. They wanted to know the most about engineering. And so they gave an overview that they had, students went in with sort of an equal level of knowledge of each of the academies, but their interest was in knowing and increasing their understanding. In the post-survey, what they said in their responses is basically, after seeing all of the academies, they felt that they now had the most interest in carpentry. That jumped out as the number, which is really interesting, right? You think about all that our students want to know and explore. They gave comments specifically, and they said the thing they enjoyed the most about the week included that it was full of exploratory opportunities, learning new things. They loved the opportunity to see each one of the academies. Makerspace was something that they had not tried, and they said that they made stickers and loved doing that while they were in there. It was a very enjoyable opportunity. And so again, these are the words of our students, and we have the surveys that they have from those academies. This is the first time that we've had a CTE Academy in the summer, and we are on our second round of that this week. So we have another round of CTE Academies happening. And I think from what you can see, it's been a great opportunity to try something different and get students in the building, which, just like we're hearing tonight, it's wonderful to see faces and have students, and the smiles that you see when they work with their teachers, I think says it all. Also at the high school level, we have 52 students that have registered for credit recovery. And on the first day, there were 26 students present. That has increased. We now have 33 students. We are on day 4 of this program. Once again, speaking to the staff at the high school, it is the teachers that are making all the difference in this credit recovery, and the students seem to really be taking advantage of the opportunity to catch up on some of their lost learning. As you know, last week we kicked off Camp Keep, which is covered through a different grant. This is actually a competitive grant that we run, our KEEP program, and that one is targeted for students that have experienced learning loss. That is one that is limited to students that are performing significantly below level. So teachers identify those students, and at this point, attendance is at 87%. Typically, we run a camp with about 75 to 80 students, and this year we have 97 students attending Camp KEEP. This runs the same time as Horizons, and we work cooperatively in the community to be sure that our students can take advantage of both programs to best suit their individual needs. Camp Keep, the one thing that makes it stand out is the Sultana visits, the Echo Hill visits, and all of the different arts and crafts opportunities that take place. This year, parents have been incredibly complimentary of the communication. One of the things that we built in that was different is that we had outreach in the community. So again, it's all about the people. We have a social worker, a counselor, and also an ESOL coordinator for Camp Keep. And so that has helped us tremendously in really helping students that are identified as at risk. Most of you know our ESOL translator, Anna, has been there every day faithfully helping both the students as well as their families to be sure we're maximizing these opportunities. The summer also included 5th grade intensive math tutoring. Based on the data, we know that in the area of mathematics, in particular transitioning from elementary to middle school, fractions has been a key area of need. So based on that information, principals have identified students for individual tutoring. The funding through this came through our ESSER funds, and we have specific tutors that are working with 5th graders, Rock Hall, Galena, and Garnett students. The students meet with their tutors virtually, and some of them meet face-to-face. It was dependent upon the preference of the families. They spend approximately 3 to 4 hours one-on-one or in small groups receiving tutoring specifically in the area of fractions. We have given a pre-assessment, and at the end of summer, we're going to share the data for both the pre and the post-assessment, measuring progress in this particular area of math. The last piece is that the principals are very busy planning for the August Acceleration Academies. Enrollment is just through the roof. So we're pretty excited about this because it allows us, we were able to open our doors to everyone, and it's really a multi-pronged approach. We're not only addressing the academic needs that we know are identified and jump out in our data, but it's also more about those connections. Letting the children build relationships with one another, with their teachers that they've been away from, and really having a chance to focus on those social-emotional skills as well as the academic skills. So we'll be excited to share with you in August an update on where we are with that program as well. We have been asked to keep an eye on the CDC information regarding masks. As of July 1, our KEEP program was, the students were not required to wear masks during that program. They are maintaining social distancing, and we've had a successful, I hate to say it, but first week. It's been excellent. So both feedback from students, parents, and the staff as well. No reports, no issues in terms of health or wellness concerns. We did have to fund, not have to, but we were able to fund a full-time nurse for the program. So typically that's a stretch, right? We have to share sometimes, but this time they're on site, and that has been fantastic. So I don't think I have any other updates for that particular piece, but that's an overview of where we are with our summer programs this summer. Are there any questions?
When will the families be contacted about how the academic excellence camps are going to move forward?
I know that I was actually in the office of one of our principals today where they were planning, each site has a program coordinator, and so they're each sending out information. I would say within the next week, parents should have at least a call and/or a letter informing them if they have been accepted. So they did we set it up initially so that we received the information, but there was no return receipt. That was corrected. So as soon as they submitted their information, parents started to get a return receipt saying your registration was received. Children will not be turned away. So if children have registered, they will be invited and they will be able to attend the Acceleration Academies. There will be no one denied the opportunity to go to that.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask about recovery. You know, we'll have a meeting on July 22nd. I don't know if you'll be here then or not, but if you are, I would ask that you update us, and that at the August meeting also update us. I talked to Mr. Webb today just about where we were in terms of the virus and things like that. So how will we communicate to families what's going to be expected of them when they send their kid to school in terms of both the classroom and the school bus?
Yes, we will definitely bring information specific to the next meeting to share with you.
Yeah, but how will we let our parents know that when school's getting ready to start, will there be some sort of robocall or something on social media?
We will use multiple methods to communicate. We will not only use the robocall, but we will be sure to post it on Facebook, and we also will send it in newsletters from the school. So each school sends a welcome back letter, as well as our superintendent. So again, we have multiple opportunities to mail, post, and do the robocall as well.
And hopefully this year we'll be able to have our back to school, the
open house.
The open houses,
Yes,
and we can communicate it then too.
Correct.
Okay.
We'll also have the reopening plan posted on our website as well, like we did.
It's just, I know I'm beating a drum here, but not everybody is electronic, so we need to be able to make sure that we get it to them every way possible.
Correct.
Thank you.
Real quick, I wanted to talk. Could you just explain? I had a conversation with one of our employees the other day. They expressed some concern about the number of students in a classroom at a time during especially the Acceleration Academies. Could you just walk us through, like class sizes, what that might look like, and resources within the classroom? And then once you walk me through, I think I have another question.
So I can share with you what we proposed in the grant, which was a student-to-teacher ratio of 12:1. So that's what we had budgeted. Now, when you put it out, it's just like any of our grants. That's the vision that we have for the staffing ratio. However, when the numbers come in, it may be that you need to make some adjustments. So I think we're positioned better in that we're able to offer more support staff and/or teachers. And we're monitoring this with the principals as well as the site coordinators. And absolutely, if adjustments need to be made, they will be made.
Okay. So a class size of 22, that's doable.
22 would be unusual for summer. For one teacher and 22 students. So again, I would be curious if that's something that you're hearing, do we have a support staff member in there as well?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I just wanted, it was just a concern. And so the students, when they are coming into the Acceleration Academies, I just want to be clear, is there room for testing, pre-testing, and post-testing?
It's a requirement in the grant.
And there's a requirement in the grant, right? But they're also doing field trips, correct?
Correct.
So field trips every Friday. So one of the concerns that was being lifted was the amount of time that we do all this pre-testing and post-testing, which I'm all for, but we do all this pre-testing and post-testing, and then it seems like we are are because of the field trips. We're trying to get all this instruction, so some individuals felt maybe we shouldn't pre-test or post-test. So we're saying that all students will be pre-tested and post-tested.
A lesson we've learned from running the summer program for a number of years is that in the summer, you're going to be able to maximize the instruction if you narrow the focus. So as part of our end of the year, our teacher teams at each grade level worked collaboratively to identify the key standards that should be assessed in the academy. So unlike MAP or the state assessment where they, assess multiple standards, we have a very narrow focus, which allows us not to take hour upon hour assessing in the summer, but really have a focused area, give that pre-assessment, and then the field trips, the planning that goes into the field trip is to do the interdisciplinary approach, so that even though they may be off-site at an art studio learning, you may be connecting it to geometry or another standard, again, to provide multiple opportunities for students to learn and master that information.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. I think the Acceleration Academies, one thing over the summer I teach at Horizons myself, and it's been very eye-opening for me as serving the students of our district in a role as a teacher and seeing the importance of these summer acceleration programs, seeing where our students are academically and where we can make that growth. So I support these Acceleration Academies. I just was very taken back by these 22, but I'm glad people are signing up. I'm glad people are trying to get back in there to, trying to make that transition smooth from summer, from 16 months, kind of not in person. I know it's been hard for me to the new school year, so thank you.
Thank you so much. And the piece that I left out that I meant to kick off in the beginning is that we have also had successful play groups. And these are community-based for 3- and 4-year-olds. So again, this is to address that whole readiness for school by age 5. And there have been not only a really positive embracing in the schools and in the communities in terms of the playgroups, but each of the little ones that attend the playgroups walk away with hands-on books and exploratory. The one we attended, they had insect catching, little crates or something, and it's all, again, that approach of the interdisciplinary approach to teaching and learning and focused on being ready for school.
If we wanted to see we're able to come and give us.
Yes, so we have the dates on our website, but I will be happy to email them. It's hard to find, we have so much on there, so if you just want me to push out an email to give you those, it's a lot of fun to get out there and visit it. I want to thank April Gagowski, who has been phenomenal at really helping to pull this together, along with Dr. Keene and Michelle Serino, so it's been and Flo Terrell, blah, 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 blah. But it's been a nice collaboration with multiple people, and that's what makes it successful. Sorry. I get excited about this.
Any additional questions on the recovery plan? No? Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Striving Readers Comprehensive Library Literacy Grant, update.
Thank you so much. So at this point, I'd just like to share, we were awarded 3 years ago a comprehensive literacy grant. It was $1.2 million, $400,000 per year. And this grant enabled us to, for the first time, have literacy coaches in the district. These coaches have been tremendous support, not only in the classroom, but also in helping us really stay on top of building our literacy curriculum and assessments and providing quality professional development. The grant is not only about providing additional staff, but also making sure that we address the needs of students from birth all the way through grade 12. So what I'd like to share with you tonight is just a summary of the activities that have occurred over the course of this grant since we have had it in 2018. And, sorry, I have a hard time talking and doing this. Okay. We'll start off with birth to age 5. And some of the highlights for this particular group include the materials. And who would have ever known we'd be in a pandemic in the middle of our Striving Readers grant? But one of the things that we did was shift gears and not only have the classroom libraries, but also were able to mail home magazines and books to our students and families during the pandemic that they were able to keep in their homes and build their own home libraries as well. Our teachers, we know based on our local assessment data, we've drilled down to recognize that there is a need in what's called foundational literacy skills, and those skills include things like phonemic awareness, phonics, all key in helping a child become a confident, fluent reader. So our grant has provided additional training and support in what's called, I know it looks like it's misspelled, but that's the actual spelling, the LETTERS course. And Kent County was one of the first counties in the state to have all pre-K and kindergarten teachers receive the full training, which actually they have a certification at the end. They have a certificate and they received credit for the training. These include not only the face-to-face training, but our teachers during the pandemic were amazing because they completed virtual modules and continued that commitment to professional development all along. Raising a Reader is our outreach to the community. This grant has provided additional support to our library, our Natalie Lane that works at the Kent County Public Library is one of our key partners, and she worked with us so that we could offer the Kent Family Center, the library, and also local daycare providers something called Raising a Reader kits. And so these are books, and they actually come with little bags and activities for parents and children to do at home to improve literacy. The grant also was helpful in the area of an outreach for our Infants and Todd program with the Raising a Reader, as well as our 3-year-old program. This is just, oh my goodness, and so thank you very much. I don't know what I hit. Hold on, sorry. That's the end. All right, so these are just a few, why is it doing that? Am I doing it, Bill? Check your writing. Thank you. Apologies. Oh my goodness. All right, let's bring it up. Check right arrow. Hit it, there we go. Okay. Whew. It's very sensitive. Thank you. Okay. Yes. So these photos support what I had just described to you. Sorry about that. And it's not going to let me hit the arrow. Okay. In addition to the training, the administrators also receive support in knowing what to look for in the classroom because, as you know, things are changing in terms of what we know about helping students become proficient readers. So this is an example of one of the informational handouts that our principals received that show how that information was not only given to provide a difference in the classroom, but also to help us strengthen our skills as administrators as well. Okay, Bill? There we go. For grades K through 5, the licenses for, and if any parents are in the audience, I know you'll know what this is, for Lexia, that was also purchased. Lexia, we found out, was a lifesaver during the pandemic because it allowed us to have students, provide students immediate access to level texts and also opportunities for meaningful activities that connected to those texts on a regular basis. It also gave teachers data to analyze to see is progress being made and what can we do in between. Lexia is also equipped, once you're reading that data, to go in, do an analysis, and provide some additional support at a particular level, depending on the strengths and needs. We also heard feedback that one thing we hadn't thought about with the initial purchase of Lexia is that students that were in need of enrichment also received that information. So it not only addressed the interventions, but enrichment as well. You cannot talk about improvement of literacy without also mentioning we must focus on improving writing as well. So as a school district, this grant has enabled us to receive training and materials in something called the 6 traits of writing. And not one of these initiatives that were mentioned were one and done. We didn't do it for a year and put it away. It has been something that we've been doing continuously, again, and we're excited to see the results as we move through to look for improvement in each one of these areas. The 6 traits of writing is something that our teachers, again, were able to use as they worked with students during the pandemic as well as in the return to school. So when they came back to school, our students had opportunities to not only read what they call mentor texts, but to respond to those texts. And these are just some of the, again, photos showing that the person in the top left corner is actually a consultant, and she continued her work with our teachers that you can see her working with us virtually in that particular instance. One of the things that we've seen an increase in our skill set is really using data to drive the decision making. And so this is just a quick sample report. And I know we're looking forward to our work session with the board where we'll be able to dive deeper and actually go into looking at some of these reports in great detail. But what our teachers wanted to know is, how do we know if our students are growing? What is the evidence? So again, this is just an example of the report to show Lexia pre and post, and it shows a variety of children in terms of their progress at the various grade levels. I know you can't see it, sorry, but you can see by the visual that you can see the pre and post and the growth. In grades 6 through 12, you may recall when we had the Tigerland book extravaganza, and we had the author from Tigerland join us, and that again was supported through the Circle grant, including at the middle school and high school something called Lexia Power Up. So that was sort of for the upper grade levels to continue that online reading. And then our high school teachers were utilizing something called Revision Assistant, and one of the things that the feedback we received from the teachers is they love the fact that it required students to monitor their own progress. Students would write, and as they would write, they would get feedback, and it would tell them if they needed to improve their writing and what needed to happen, and they could watch a little, what is that called? Like a little, I want to say radar, a little icon at the top that would show the lights going up as they improve their writing. So it's immediate feedback with the writing as well. Classroom libraries, books for classroom libraries were purchased for our middle school as well as some of the high school classrooms. And professional development, I know some of our board members attended this. Kylene Beers and Bob Probst came in, and their focus was on engagement and comprehension at the high school level. This is just a picture of our students back in the event when we hosted the author of Tigerland. Again, a 3-year grant, and this is a sample of the high school level data review in the various grade levels, as well as the breakdown with Lexia. It would show growth in grammar, comprehension, and word study at the high school level as well. This is a sample report for Revision Assistant, just to show you again, when you have a program, it's about utilizing the data to really change what's happening in the classroom. And if it isn't working, we don't want to just keep doing something because we purchased it. That's what was important to see. Is it making a difference or is it not? These are our teachers that were identified to attend a training with Kylene and Bob, and every teacher received a copy of the books that you see up there, reading nonfiction for the secondary teachers, and then notice and note for elementary and middle school as well. And so as a result of the Circle Grant funds, you can see our students, our staff, our families were supported in many different ways. Those ways included the coaches by modeling strategies, collaborative planning, and offering school-based professional development. So again, tonight we were hoping to give you an overview of the 3 years and just kind of show you some of the highlights. I also would like to offer a copy, and I'll leave a few samples in the back of some of the newsletters and brochures on oral language and other pieces that were all developed as a result of the grant. If anyone does not get a copy and is interested, I would love to send it to you. So I'll put a little paper, you can write your address down, and I can mail it to you if I don't have enough for everyone. But would you like me to give them to our guests first or to the board members?
We can guess first.
Okay, so if you would like one, can you just raise your hand and I'll drop them off? Thank you. Maybe if I can get it down. Does anybody? I'll take it. Thank you. Okay.
Gina, I have a question about the reporting. Is it individualized as well as school, so teachers can see for the granularity for an individual student?
Yes.
Okay.
So I did not show that in this slideshow, but both Lexia and Revision Assistant have individual student reports as well.
So I had a interesting discussion with a community member the other day, and I think this is kind of in tandem. I love that we have the grant, but one of the community member was very adamant about, and I was trying to walk him through some educational statistics. I'm very adamant about that our students are not up to par where they need to be. And I was hoping, we have all these grants and we have these good ideas. Is there a way we can disseminate this to the public that is just not at a school board meeting and not on the website? So I really would push just like a better encouragement, taking it back to that open communication that we spoke about, some of us spoke about earlier, taking this back to the community, because we're doing all this stuff, and one of this came down to the reading data pre-COVID, the pandemic, and then post-pandemic, and I was trying to explain, as a teacher myself, that when we looked at the data, we didn't see much difference as we go along, but we have all these avenues in place to support, and they continue to look at me and tell me I still disbelieve it. So I guess some assurance would be, so what I'm trying to say, I think we do need to push this forward, maybe a town hall, maybe a conversation with the community, just so they know that we have these avenues in place, that we're trying our best to improve our academic achievement in our school system.
And I guess that's what I would say is a beginning is the work session that we're going to have. When we had our retreat, we talked about a better way in terms of communicating, making sure we broadcast it, live stream it, and share all of the initiatives that we have in place, share our data, good, bad, and ugly, but all of our data, and then set forth a target in terms of where we want to be by the end of the school year of FY22. So we could certainly take that show on the road, if you will, and provide some other opportunities to share, and for those that can't make the meeting. But this was an opportunity for the board, for you all, to be part of sharing your thoughts with regard to setting up our targets and where we're going to move forward. And then we can certainly, once we settle on a target for the FY22 school year, then we can take that on the road and share that information. Because I agree, I think we need to do a better job of putting that information out there.
Any additional questions for Ms. Giacomowitz?
How are we reaching parents about the importance of reading every day during the summer?
I am so glad that you asked that. I was actually prepared to share something about our summer reading, but I didn't know if it was appropriate. I know that we were doing the programs this time. As we said last meeting, we partnered with the Kent County Public Library, and I did a quick check-in. This is the first summer we're actually able to sort of keep our finger on the pulse of the actual numbers of families and students that are participating, and it's part of the Kent County, I don't know if everyone has had a chance to see that, but we've set a goal of the number of words that we want to read as a community. And so what Natalie shared with me this morning is an overview, and the greatest number that we've ever had before are participating fully in the program. So we have also built this into the KEEP program, and we'll also make it part of our academies, that we are able to, again, encourage, not only encourage, but require students to be reading during the summer as part of improving that literacy.
When parents say of a sixth grader who reads at a third grade level, do we communicate to parents how serious a problem that is? I mean, do we have somebody sit down and say, this is a big problem? Your child is not going to get much out of middle school and high school if they're reading at a third grade level. What do we do about that?
So you're asking me, as
Do
a
we really
school-
communicate? Do parents really understand that, you know, these levels matter? You know, it matters if you have if a sixth grader who's reading at a third grade level.
It absolutely matters, and I can't think of one teacher that does not stress the importance and also communicate regularly, both during our academic school year as well as our summer program. But do we do it enough? Probably not. I mean, that's something you can always share that information and probably need to do it, I don't know, maybe a stronger voice or a stronger message.
Well, I think Dr. Costa does bring up a good point when we're thinking about academics. I mean, I notice sometimes we teachers may be able to interpret an assessment data and be able to understand what a Lexile score is or what level the student is on, but our parents can't. And so I think Dr. Costa does put, again, another point. We have to do a better job at communicating what does this mean? Because how do we expect this improvement, expect this gain, but as I've said oftentimes, the greatest classroom is the home environment because that's where they spend the most time. So if we can give them anything to help move and push this importance of, especially Dr. Costa's reading, so I think that would be wise to do. That's just me.
Additional questions, comments?
Yeah, I do have a question. Because I've had a couple community members come to me who I respect to tell me whether they've been involved in like the Homework Depot or some tutoring, and they'll say, you know, I've got a student who's in the sixth grade but reading at a third grade level, and then saying that student is still going to be promoted to the next grade. So that gap's just going to get larger because then you're going to have a seventh grader reading on a third grade level and then an eighth grader reading on a third grade level. What are we doing to close that gap?
Well, I think, again, some of the pieces that we described earlier are intentionally designed to address exactly what you're saying. One of the things that we know is it's not always about intervention. It's about meeting the children where they are and accelerating their learning. And so just like we heard our Teachers Association come up and talk about, you know, we have to think about everyone is sort of scrambling. We've never been in this situation. It's typical summer learning loss plus. And so, yes, when you're saying what are we doing, I think we're describing a little bit of that effort tonight, but I think we're going to continue to go above and beyond in terms of other things, and we are open to any thoughts, you know, that people might have that would be ideas that we haven't considered either. So we have specific programs that are designed. Our selection of materials are what we call ESSER approved, so you have to meet certain ratings. We work collaboratively with the State Department in terms of getting information that might be more relevant or something we could try that's more meaningful strategy-wise. And believe it or not, having someone on site like Dr. Keene, who is so experienced in understanding that early reading and differentiation, is key. So it's about, I think, we're constantly studying and working together to try to see what we can do to help close that gap. It's not okay, it's scary, and we are all, you know, I think, invested in this together.
Yeah, and I don't discount at all that your effort, but this was pre-pandemic. I mean, we can't just say, well, we've all experienced loss because of COVID. You know, these numbers have been pretty bad for a while, and we come up with something, whether it's maps or something else, and then we pivot to something else, and it's a head scratcher as to why we're not making improvements. I'm looking at the middle school data here, and it's
Hard to read.
yeah. Can't tell if it's middle or.
Are you looking
Oh,
at
the elementary.
2019,
No, I'm looking at
2019
the-
state assessment?
No, I'm looking at the presentation you just made, K to fifth grade dyslexia. I
Yes.
mean, it'll grab you by the seat of your pants when you look at how far below grade. I mean, 99% of our fifth graders started the year, under grade level. I mean, like I said, that didn't just happen because of the pandemic. So I know we collaborate amongst ourselves, and it's difficult when we're a school system because you only got like 2 people teaching the 3rd grade in a school. But what about other school districts who are having success? I mean, they have to have the same challenged students that we do, and what are they doing to improve while we're not? Do we do that?
Absolutely. I mean, are you asking, do we coordinate and collaborate? So
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
with not only, across the shore, which I
Yeah.
think we have more frequent collaboration across the shore, but also across the state as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would think the shore would be our first people to reach out because we're similar. Small size, same environmental issues, same income, those kinds of things. Okay, it's just,
And I think that information will go into more detail when we talk about it during the work session. Because what we'd like to do is be able to share with you who we've spoken to,
Yeah.
some of the updates that we've done to our curriculum, and some of the updates that we expect will make a difference with regard to other school systems that are seeing greater gains with the use of those.
it's just something I just haven't been able to get my hands around, that we have some exceptional teachers, and I think all of our teachers are really good. We have some incredible students. I mean, if you sat at graduation and listened to those speakers, or the induction ceremony and the resumes of each of those seniors was read, I mean, it was incredible. But we are like next to last in the test scores, and I don't know if our scores are getting better and everybody else's are getting better, so we can't overcome somebody, but I've just never understood, because we're so small, I feel like I want to reach in and literally fix it.
We're still using, of course, reading specialists and math specialists that are doing either pulling out or pushing into the classes to work with the kids who have
So at the
especially.
school level, we have interventionists and we have teacher specialists at each of our elementary schools. And yes, and they work on interventions. Sometimes they're within the classroom during the small group, and other times they're pulled out. We also have had additional grants, which again, when we quote the 2019 data, we believe that we need to look at that, put it on the table, and then let's move forward, because we have been doing things such as sound partners, where I can't wait till we have an opportunity to share with you what that data looks like. We have not had a state assessment report now in quite a while, so it'll be interesting and I think important to pay attention to what are we doing and what will those results look like with the effort and the things that we've put in place.
Yeah, and if I've come across as like trying to embarrass you in public or put you on the spot, it's not meant to be that way. It's just that I feel like I need to say it publicly, that we're looking at this, and I don't think I'm alone in my colleagues here, perplexed, confused, frustrated, disappointed, and at a loss how to make things better.
Yeah, and I would just add, I keep hearing Ms. Bachman's comment about the teachers and kind of where they are at the moment. Can we do any type of assessment or is there a tool that we can get a pulse at the 3 levels, elementary school, middle school, high school, just to check in and just understand, okay, we've got a month and a half until we go live, can we get a pulse as to where the teachers are? Because we're talking about, is anyone reaching out to the parents? Well, most of the teachers that I know reach out to the parents on their own, right? And it's hard because parents are working. That's a stressor, right? So that it takes away from something else. So how do we, can we do some type of assessment with our teachers at each school level and just understand that, okay, these are the top 5 or the top 10 list of items that are really concerning, going back. And it may be broad stroke, it may be focused in a certain area, but just that,
I think that's an excellent suggestion.
just that we have some type of idea, because everything that we're talking about seems to always flow through the teachers, and the teachers are the ones that are, yeah, so anyway.
And I would say the same for our support staff. So
Yeah,
we really need to
yeah,
think
I mean-
all the way through. Right, I agree.
Right, and what I would say is, I don't think there's a single teacher that has not drilled down their data to identify the specific students that they know in their class that have some significant deficits and with regard to their learning. And many times, it is discouraging in that when the teachers have drilled down their data and they look to see where they have whether they've progressed academically in their class, it sometimes comes down to just 2 students that have made the difference because our classes are so small. So if we have classes of 15, if we have classes of 18, sometimes it only takes 2 students. Now, those 2 students are incredibly important, and they should be. But the smaller we get, the more difficult it is for us to make the progress that we all hope to achieve. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive to be better, doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive to work harder. But I can tell you that it's very discouraging to our teachers when they drill down their data and they note that it's just a very small number of students. And so we have to do a better job of the after-school programs, the summer school programs, all of the interventions that we've been able to purchase with the ESSER funds. I think those are all going to be helpful. The Sound Partners program, I know that Rock Hall Elementary was the first school to pilot the Sound Partners program, and they saw significant gains in the students that were non-readers, and they were able to make gains from the pre and the post-test. They were actually looking forward to being able to test, and then the pandemic hit. So I don't want to take away from our teachers in terms of the work that they've put into place and the amount of effort that has gone into making a difference. I think that, we just have to continue to strive. One of the things that we have not done is been very vocal about the specific target that we need to achieve, and I think that's going to make a difference as well. But I also need to be very clear that that in many cases, our teachers know exactly which students that they have in their classrooms. And the more we try to mainstream our students and the more we try to integrate, the more challenges we have by being small. But we certainly are doing the best that we can. We're trying to look at making changes that are going to make a difference. We can't continue to do the same thing because it's not going to achieve the results that we want. But we have a new math curriculum this year. We are updating our ELA curriculum as well. We spent the year, one thing that happened with COVID is that we had that opportunity to actually sit down and make some changes within our curriculum, and we had the time to do that. So we're feeling like we're in a strong position beginning the school year, but we're going to keep a focus on it. We're going to continue to recommend that we have work sessions. We keep our eye on the ball. We continue to assess and not wait till the end of the year to say, well, we didn't make the mark. We're going to have a better idea in terms of where we're at, and if we have to change midstream, then that's what we have to do.
And I don't think anyone, I don't want to put this out, I don't think anybody's discrediting the hard work that our educators are putting in. I just think it presents some concern that we're still stuck in this regimented state here, and I know I lose sleep on it every night. Just being stuck, and I hear the passion in your voice, Dr. Couch. I hear it in Ms. Giacomo's. I see it in I see it in the students' faces that they want to succeed and learn. And I just keep going back to these concepts of this shift. We were there, we're down here, we're up and down. It's just trying to find that even playing field, and I hope that with these things that we have, that we can finally get to that mark. I think it does present some concern, but I don't want anybody to think we're discrediting the
Right.
hard work that's going on.
Well, and I would state that, and we talked about this at the retreat, and we need to do a better job of singing our praises as well. But I know that at the state school board meeting, one of the things that the State Board of Education was to share the school districts that are doing a better job at closing the gap between minority students and between white students. And in every case, in just about every case, Kent County was in the top 3 in terms of narrowing the gap. And that was data that another entity compiled. We didn't compile those data. This was data that was compiled by the State Board of Education. I think that it would be important to begin our work session on the 22nd by sharing those data and showing some of the things that we are doing right, because I don't want to discredit anybody for not trying to make a difference in terms of trying to close the gap, because until we can demonstrate that we're making progress with all of our students, we're not going to make the kind of gains that we need to make. And narrowing the gap between our minority and our white students is a good first step.
I just want to reiterate what Mr. Johnson said. If it sounds like I'm being critical, I'm not. I guess what I'm saying is I feel like we just need to acknowledge.
We do, yeah.
Let's just say, and part of improving is acknowledging that we're not where we want to be, and that's really just all I was doing. I think we have great teachers. All of our teachers are highly qualified. I don't in any way question their effort or their dedication. I just confounded as to why we're sort of,
Swirling,
yeah.
right.
It's like that disco ball on your computer when you hit something and it just won't move. That's kind of where I feel like we are.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackmone.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Board Policy BCF Board Advisory Committee. Dr. Couch, I think you were listed as the presenter.
Yes. Okay, before you have a recommendation for a revision of Board Policy BCF, the Board Advisory Committee, you'll note that this revision does not preclude the board from having an advisory, a standing, or ad hoc committees, that will be at your discretion. It is noting that there shall be at least one citizen advisory committee to serve as a channel for public concerns. You can certainly develop ad hoc committees, standing committees, advisory committees, and subject-specific committees. This is just a revision that we talked about at our retreat, and this more mirrors what we are currently doing and does not at all tie your hands for moving forward, should you choose to change it at any point in time. So this was reviewed as information at the last board meeting. This is recommended for approval at this meeting as well, or we can certainly continue to look at it at your discretion.
Okay, so the last time it was revised, this, but it hadn't been revised for a while. If somebody came up to you and said, so what are the significant changes? I'm asking you, what are the significant changes?
The significant changes are the fact that there is not a specific citizens advisory committee listed with a number of open members. It's still listed that you can have an advisory committee, and it's at the board's discretion with regard to when you establish those committees in the future.
So,
And then I would say that we added ad hoc committees as well. That wasn't in the policy as well, and there was no avenue for putting together any ad hoc committee, so that was added as well.
so it's more of a clarification and an addition
Right.
than, okay.
Any additional comments
So-
on, please,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Johnson, go ahead. No, go ahead, that's great.
So, can you just go back over that one more time? So I just want to make sure I completely understand
Okay.
what's changed here.
What's specifically changed from the policy that we had before is there was specifically a citizens advisory committee that had specific number of members that was chartered as terms of, the committee was established by the board. They specifically advised the board. It noted that advised them during for policy and other concerns, an avenue in terms of presenting those concerns to the Board of Education. And I guess, in some ways, if you wanted to call it collaborative, I guess it would be a way of
So-
doing collaborative.
So when was the last, let's pretend we're in the existing policy.
Okay.
When was the last time we had that Citizens Advisory Committee?
I tried to go back and figure out when the last Citizens Advisory was in place, and the best that I could, it was prior to me.
Right.
So it was probably, I'd say, close to 15 years. I know that there was I think it was a PTA advisory, and I think that that probably counted for some type of advisory with the board. So I'm not really sure. It's been very unclear to me. Nobody could actually tell me in terms of when the last time there was a actual citizens
Which
advisory.
means it was too long ago.
It was long ago, yes, prior to my being hired for Kent County. So, as I stated, there's a specific category named advisory, standing, or ad hoc committees. It says the Board of Education may establish advisory, standing, or ad hoc committees to make recommendations on topics and issues that are impacting the educational program and/or activities of the Kent County Public Schools.
So how would that happen? I'm a board member, and let's say I decide that we need to have an let's, reinstitute, reinvigorate, rewrite, do something. Let's say I think we need, do I come to a board meeting and do
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
You would come to the board meeting, bring that up, and then we would, as a body, make that recommendation and determine what that would look like.
And things on there would be the composition of the board, the
Yes.
terms?
Right.
Okay.
So that doesn't preclude you from making that recommendation and/or seeing if that is, supported by your fellow board members. It also supports a fellow board member coming up with a recommendation to start an ad hoc committee as well, which would be subject-specific.
Wouldn't you consider what we have, the existing ones, wouldn't you consider those sort of ad hoc committees?
Some of them are, yes, but you could start another committee. For instance, you might want to start an ad hoc committee that is specifically going to look at budget.
Yeah.
So we.
Communication.
Yeah, communication, something
Well,
of
that
that
was-
nature.
My recollection of the retreat was, that was sort of a direction we were.
Right.
I don't know that there was agreement. We were just saying that that's a possibility if, we needed help with the budget or whatever, yeah.
Correct. So that doesn't preclude you from doing that.
In the last district you served, did you have anything similar?
We had a budget committee.
Are there any additional comments?
I have one more question for Dr. Couch, and if it puts you on the spot, I apologize, but it just triggered your conversation. So, to the best of your recollection and the best of my recollection, there hasn't been a Citizens Advisory Committee for too long. In the 8 years that you've been the superintendent, can you think of a time where it would have been helpful to have one?
Well, I would say we've had several committees put together. We had the strategic plan for the facilities update. That particular committee went on for a year, and we met almost every month, sometimes twice a month, in terms of, and that was a broad-based committee that was put together, and we ended up with a product, which was the facilities, the 6-year facilities strategic plan. So we did that. I started a budget committee when I first came, and the attendance for that dwindled off. At first, it seemed very much involved, and we had particular people coming in from all of the schools. And then we disbanded that because we only had 1 or 2 people that showed up to those meetings. So, so I think sometimes it's the nature of what's important to the community at the time. When we closed schools, there was a committee that was put together, an advisory committee that we put together in terms of looking at which schools we should close. At the time, we were only looking at closing one school. And then what came out of the committee is we really felt strongly that we needed to close 2 schools. So I think that at any given time that there's a need for an advisory committee, if you will, or a committee that's going to put together recommendations or, fit a need that we might have at that particular point in our history.
Well, so, listening to the comments that have been made tonight by both the student member of the board and the public, I would say, and so I need somebody else to correct me if I'm wrong, that the ad hoc committees are based on expertise in a certain specific area.
Or
budget,
interest.
yeah.
Or interest.
Well, okay, but what I'm hearing from the community, some teachers, some parents, some students, is that they're looking for a committee of parents or community members that are interested in our overall school system, trying to be a part of the solution, so to speak, as opposed to somebody who's, a brainiac and they're going to sit on the budget, or an engineer that's going to sit on the strategic. Because I went to a couple of those strategic meetings, and I will tell you, I've lived here my whole life, and I consider my job certainly allows me to get out in the public, and I didn't know anybody on that committee. So I feel like the demographic that I think Dr. Buckle is representing tonight, I think they would say they have felt left out in some of these processes, and that's where I think that perhaps a standing advisory committee would be different from an ad hoc committee.
Well, this policy doesn't preclude any of that.
I know,
And
but
I would
it
just-
doesn't mandate us to make one either. Somebody could come, one of us board members could say, I think we should have one, and I guess it's the democratic process, but we could be voted down 4-1.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that.
This just sets up the
Bless you.
structure so that we could
Yes.
do it. We have that multicultural committee that was pretty active for about a
Right.
year.
But that's pretty much taken a different turn in regard to us meeting on a regular basis with the Social Action Committee, which I meet with them on a monthly basis as well. And so, it's myself, Ms. Williams, Dr. Holacher, Van Hamlin. So, and their committee, which goes anywhere from 5 to 6 people, depending upon who's going to come to that particular meeting. So I can go either way. I think this allows opportunity to do, I don't think it limits your opportunity. I think it expands it in some respects with adding the ad hoc committees, which there was no avenue to do that. And it specifically states what you can and can't do with regard to putting these committees together. So certainly, you're under no obligation to approve this policy as is. We can certainly continue to work on it. I'm open to whatever you would like to do.
I just want to make a comment. Trish, I understand where your comments are about the ad hoc committees and having specialists. I think
And I think they're needed. Don't
No,
get me
I'm not saying they're not. I think, but some of the best committees that I've seen and actually been on have been folks that brought common sense, most importantly, to it,
Well,
whether it's a
that's
strategic plan.
That's the demographic I think Dr. Buckle's talking about.
Well, let's just talk for a minute, because Francois was on that committee, and she's not an engineer. And she certainly wasn't, all she was a parent.
Yeah,
And we had several parents on the committee. We also had Mrs. Heller was on the committee. We had a commissioner on the committee.
Yeah, but I feel like those were people, take Francois out of the equation for a minute. I think that the reason probably a commissioner or the county administrator was on that, because we decided we needed to check that box and make sure that that person was on there. That's my feeling. You know, I guess what I'm worried about is that, and again, this is just me, I think a Citizens Advisory Committee is important. You know, we still, let's pretend we've established one, okay? We still have the say. I mean, we get the best of both worlds. We get their input, but we still get to make the decision whether we act on any of that. What I'm worried about is, you know, it's great that this, you know, refashioned policy allows us to do that, but what I'm worried about is there won't be the initiative to do that. I mean, I hate to be told what to do, but, you know, it's, sometimes you have to be told what to do to get it done. I mean, we had the policy that we had a board advisory committee and we didn't use it, you know, so.
My question, I think my question deep down is, why didn't we use it? And why wasn't it active? I think it's easy to say something's been inactive for a long time and we have no reason why. And, you know, I think, you know, speaking to some of my colleagues, they have, I mean, I saw no problem with the policy prior to, but I know some of my colleagues have had Citizens Advisory Committee councils, and again, it's just a time for parents and teachers to just put it out there. Attendance may be lack at some, but you never know if you don't try, you know. But I hear where Ms. McGee is coming from.
I think it's important to, when we have ad hoc committees, to make sure that the public knows that they exist, and if they have an interest in being on them, they can do so, and that it isn't just through Facebook, because I think there are a lot of people, I know there are a lot of people who really don't want anything to do with Facebook. So there has to be some other way of having public,
Discourse.
discourse.
Right.
But this policy does state that may establish advisory, standing, or ad hoc. I think we're focusing on ad hoc, but it also, if there is a board member or board members that want to establish an advisory committee, we should talk about that.
Yeah.
But this policy doesn't preclude us from doing that.
I
I
know.
think this is a good policy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it precludes us from doing exactly what folks are looking for.
So you're saying, I just want to be clear, so say we take the policy as is tonight. We can come forward next meeting and say, okay, now we want a Citizens Advisory Committee.
That's the hope, and not 15 years later. I mean, I mean, I'm not trying to be flippant.
No,
I'm
I know.
just trying to, you know, this is a policy that was buried, and you know, and now that it's in front of us, I mean, the policy as it is presented here does not preclude any of that.
What do you think, Sam?
I think that it's beneficial to have an advisory committee, and I think it's also beneficial to have a committee and have people come up and want a specific committee and seek that input for anything. And I think that it shows that when we have Ms. Jackamoutz come up here and talk about kind of the reading skills, why don't we have specific committees that talk about different things, maybe just for high school? Why don't we have specific committees that just talk about different things within STEM and not just one that talks about STEM? So I think that creating small committees is always beneficial. I mean, environmental affairs, civic engagement, stuff that we have stuff like, and some stuff that we don't have anything like. So I think that just having committees for as much stuff as possible and have people advising the board is just the best version of communication possible.
So the question of the board is, do we want to move forward with, because this is an action item, do we want to table it for further conversation?
You don't necessarily have to table it, because if you table it, then you have to bring it up. So, I mean, basically, you just
Let it ride.
let it ride, if that's what you choose to do.
Okay, so I've got a question about the existing policy. Okay, the existing policy says we have a Citizens Advisory Committee, right? So why don't we do something about that? why don't we fill the existing Citizens Advisory Committee? Now, it may mean that we tweak it in terms of their terms, what their responsibilities are, how we, I'm not saying I'm supporting that, I'm just saying, what made us decide, I'm using the collective we, that we needed to update the policy?
Because the policy was not implemented as it was.
And
we
how,
talked-
and
we
why do
talked
we,
ab-
and why do we know that?
Why do we know that?
Yeah.
Because it was brought up by a community member.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
And right. And so we discussed it at the retreat, and this was the collective we of
I
what
know,
you
I-
asked me to do.
I know. Hey, I'm in the
Yeah,
collective we. I
so-
mean, if anybody, I'm gonna share in the, being, having overlooked it. You know, I'm not pointing any fingers at, hey, I've been on the board for 6 years, I'm as responsible as you are.
Right. And so this update was what I was told to do with regard to what we discussed during the retreat. If that's something you want to take an about face and re-examine, I'm certainly open to doing that as well. But this was a revision that I was directed to do as a result of the retreat.
So I will ask the board members again, do we want to move forward as it's presented or not?
I mean, I think there's some lingering, I have some lingering questions as well, and I'm prepared to make a vote. I think it would help that I think we have public outcry here tonight. And this is, and I don't want to think, and I'm not trying to build, but what I'm trying to say, this is something that has come up time and time after again, and I think we have to really put our eyes towards, they have this outcry. It's been, I get it, I hear it, I don't know, Trish remembers, we were at Sumner Hall, and there was this conversation about what happened to our schools when the parents weren't involved. So there's been this constant outcry of parent involvement, and PTA cuts it. That's well, that looks good. These other specific committees we have, that looks good. But I think I see no harm. I see no problem with, and I hear what Mr. Getz is saying. We have that ability, but I still have some lingering questions as well, how it all looks.
I feel the same way as Mr. Johnson. I mean, I could vote tonight. I don't think it's going to be the way you want me to vote. I mean, but if I voted tonight, I would be voting against it.
I have a quick question. So this policy is about committees that would consist of people of the public. Who in the public do we talk about revising this policy? And furthermore, who in the public agrees with this policy? Okay.
What was the answer? I was looking at Sam and he was
No,
looking at you.
I think he's asking with regard to, who in the public is going to support this policy in this fashion, in this form? Is that what you're asking?
Somewhat. More of before we kind of brought it up to revise it, do we talk to kind of about revising it? So when you had the idea, okay, let's revise this policy, who did you bring in from the public to kind of help you work through this policy and reform it?
Right, we did not. I mean, we talked about it at our retreat, because the board is responsible by COMAR to develop board policy.
Okay.
That is the responsibility of the board. The board has a number of responsibilities. That is the budget and developing board policy. So ultimately, the board has that responsibility.
Ms. Sullivan? Dr. Costa? Any?
I feel like the revision, like you've said, doesn't preclude having a citizens advisory council if we feel like we need to convene one. As a matter of fact, I was, after we were going to do the vote, going to bring up an ad hoc committee that I would like to start as well. So whatever decision we want to make about the policy, I want to make sure that we aren't limiting the things that we were trying to add to the policy, which is to be able to form these ad hoc committees, to be able to form these additional topic committees. So that's my only input.
I could vote for this because, for the reasons you're saying. I don't see that it, it seems to me that it moves us closer to establishing the kind of community input that we're all looking for.
My other question is, what is the difference about keeping the existing policy and then just adding the ad hoc in there and moving forward like that?
There really is no change in that. I mean, you can certainly do either or. I do think that you probably need to, at the time when the policy was first developed, there was a number of members that I think reflected the number of schools that we had, which we no longer have the same number of schools. So I would certainly say that we need to look at the membership in terms of the size of the committee. So I'm only reacting to what I was told to do with regard to the retreat.
Okay. Well, it seems like we should take it to a vote. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay?
Now, Dr. Couch, if there's any type of, the administration is recommending approval of the board policy, but is there any statute or anything that states follow-up or anything along that line or additional conversation about it? I mean, it's pretty much, we have to follow through as a board to.
Right. I mean, I think there's merit in getting an understanding of where the board is at, because I think it seems like there's an about face with regard to where we were at with the retreat. So I think that certainly I'm open to making revisions as you direct me to do on behalf of the Board of Education. So certainly I need to have a better understanding of where you want to go moving forward.
Now, it may seem that I'm doing an about face, because I do very clearly remember the conversation about the ad hoc committees. I guess I probably was unaware that we actually had a policy that creates the Citizens Advisory.
presented it to
I know,
you.
but I'm just saying, seeing it in writing, hey, that was 6 hours of a conversation, that was 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. There was a lot of territory covered at that point. But sitting here and looking at this and knowing that we could have had this committee and we didn't fill it, we didn't use it, I guess I want the best of both worlds. I want a Citizens Advisory Committee, and I want the ability to create standing or ad hoc committees.
But that's what this does.
That's what this does.
Well, we can establish an advisory commission, but that's going to take, that isn't a given. I mean, like I said, I could come to next month's meeting, or next week's, 2 weeks from now, and say, I would like to establish a Citizens Advisory Committee or Commission, and it could be voted down.
But it could be anyway with our existing.
No, it already exists. Our problem is we don't have anybody sitting on it or doing anything. I mean,
I don't think it would be voted down.
well, but you don't know. I mean, there's no guarantee.
Mr. Johnson?
I was going to say, I think, can we go back to the revision table?
Okay.
Please?
Sure.
I hear Ms. McGee's point. It could go both ways unless this board is willing to commit right here tonight. We take the policy as is and then committing to bringing forward a standing advisory committee for our citizens. That's my only option.
Let's go back to the drawing table.
Okay.
Okay?
So
Thank you.
can you provide me with some direction with regard to, this was the direction I received at the retreat, so give me some direction in terms of how you would like to proceed with revision.
For me, I would like to see one overarching citizens advisory committee or council board. See that overarching, and then the establishment of the ad hoc committees and any other standing committee, thus for keeping with the same language but the additional ad hoc language.
I'd also
That's the way I
would like
feel.
to see what the structure would look like of that committee, based on the number that we have less schools?
Schools?
Yeah,
So
that,
wh-
I mean, that would
so
be
what's the
a
makeup?
discussion, yeah.
What's the makeup of that, or almost setting, not a precedent, but setting a frame for whether it's the citizen, whatever it might be moving forward, at least we have a frame that we're going to establish. I'm just throwing examples out. 2 parents meet school, or principals and 3 parents. I don't know what that looks like, but just something that is more structured.
There, and I know that the information that Francois brought forward with regard to what other school systems are doing, other school systems also have an application process, which Francois put in all of the information that she compiled. Of the 10 school systems that do have citizens advisory committees, some of them have an application process. I'd like to hear your thoughts about that with regard to should that be part of the revision as well? Because I'm trying to get some more, because this is kind of changing a little bit, so I want to make sure I understand where you want to go moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think in any capacity that I serve or anything else, there's always an interest portion of it. You know, what are the interests? What does that look like? What are your goals? I mean, I don't know, something along those lines that
Okay?
it doesn't have to be
And
a
a
medical,
formal,
form document.
right.
Well, and we
suite, but-
also saw examples of school districts that just had a general sort of sign up that I might be interested in an ad hoc committee or serving on a committee, and maybe we can come up with a way to capture the interest of the people who have said that they would like to participate on a committee, even before a committee is formed, so that we know who to reach out to.
And, for me, another thing I know that they do in some of the larger counties and even some of the smaller counties is that 2 of the chair and the vice chair have been, board members tasked to work with the community as well. So maybe some kind of language like that starts some precedent.
But I also would like to reiterate the importance of joining your school PTA. And as a parent at Galena, we had to disband our PTA this year because of lack of parents participating. So I'm not saying it has to be one or the other, but I'm saying please also
Support your
encourage
PTA.
people and find ways to participate on your PTAs. I know that both of the speakers tonight are on the PTA at the high school, so I would ask that parents and community members consider that as well. It's very important.
Okay.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the board policy IKFB, Kent County High School graduation.
Good evening, President Getz, board members, Dr. Couch. So we're coming back to you this month for approval to board policy IKFB, in that previously the wording stated that graduation would be set the first Saturday after Memorial Day. And what we're basically asking for is that we have a little more flexibility in that it would be anywhere from that Tuesday after Memorial Day or through that Saturday. And that would be brought to us in time for the calendar committee each year. Now keep this in mind. For example, graduation for 2022 was set at our last calendar committee meeting. So if that's going to change this year, we would have to do the same thing that we did for this past school year and come and ask for a waiver to that. But it would give, I think it would give people and parents especially plenty of time to know when the graduation date is going to be.
Did we
So-
also talk about building in when a date would be brought to the board, like saying it was going to be December or?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we talked about it being alongside of the timeline for the calendar
For the
committee.
calendar committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the calendar committee starts generally in January. And so, and typically we bring the calendar for your approval in March. So if we made the decision with regard to when graduation is going to be, now keep in mind, you're a year and a half ahead. So if you bring it forward in February that it's going to be on a Friday, then we would have that in enough time to put it in the calendar. So what Ms. Williams is stating is if we do want to make a change to the graduation date for this upcoming school year, then we would have to, it wouldn't be a waiver, it would be a recommendation to alter the calendar. So that's what we did this year, because we moved graduation from Saturday to Friday. So if we want to keep it as Saturday, then, we can keep it as Saturday and then move forward, but it certainly gives the option to do whatever you wish to do with regard to setting it's very specific, date specific, the way it is in the board policy now, because it's Saturday. You have no options to make any other decision besides Saturday.
Yep.
This gives you that flexibility to make that decision.
But we're also saying that would come, that recommendation would come to you from the school.
Would
So-
come from the school?
Right, it would come to
But-
you from the high school
right.
administration to the board to say, yes,
Right.
we agree with this, or no, we don't.
And it would be part of the calendar, approval of the calendar, which is, by Comar, one of your responsibilities.
Yep. Okay, this is an action item. The administration is recommending approval of the requested changes in Board Policy IKFB, Kent County High School Graduation Policy. Do we have a motion to approve this?
So
The-
moved.
That was a Dr. Costa. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. McGee. Any further comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is in the administrative services portion of the meeting. I see Ms. Stewart is walking up. We have the expenditures revenue report.
Good evening, Dr. Couch, President Getz, members of the board.
Good evening.
Samuel, welcome you as a student member of the board. Tonight, I want to go over the monthly revenue and expenditures report as of June 30th, 2021. As you note, this is preliminary. But before I go further, I do want to answer your question, Ms. Trish. The ESSER, ESSER does stand for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund.
Thanks.
So this number for tonight is going to go over the expenditures. This is preliminary, meaning that this is, the data was pulled up as of June 30th, 2021. We are still in the stages of preparing for year end. As of course, we do have the audit that is coming up. We will be preparing for that. The auditor will be coming in this month, and then also starting the field work in August so that we can be prepared to finalize our audit as of September 30th. I do want you all to note that I will at the next meeting also provide like another tentative that includes period 13. So we do have a period 13 that is open for us to clean up year end and do any changes so that you have that as well. And then the audit for fiscal year 21 that will be presented will be the final analysis for fiscal year 2021. So as we start here, as I stated before, with all receipts, this is what I've done preliminary. For Fund 1, this includes both our restricted and unrestricted funds from county, state, and other receipts that we receive. That is $33 million that we have received to date. We go into our Fund 3, which is our capital outlay, and our capital projects that we have received today is $3.6 million. And that's also on a reimbursement basis that we receive from the state as well as local, and projects they were finishing up. I believe we are still working on the Galena, and that is still underway. So we will have further work to complete for that. Our fund number 5 is our food service fund. To date, we have $900,000 that we have received, and our fund 7, which is trust and agency, none to date, bring us a total as tentatively as of June 30th, 2021, $37.6 million. We move on to our current expense. You will note that you do not see as many encumbrances in our current fund. We have about $25,000 that is encumbered. That just includes our textbooks, some miscellaneous expenses that have happened. We went ahead and did a reconciliation of our encumbrances to see what was valid, what was not. Majority was in our salaries. So as you know, June 30th, June 25th was the last pay period for our salary. We do have to do some recodes as well for our timesheets because those run on a lag. So that will be included, but that was not included in those encumbrances. So we were able to reconcile and clean up to better prepare for the next fiscal year when we did the carryover. So with the encumbrance and the year-to-date expenditures, we have expended about 81% of our budget. 25.2 million has been expended to date. School construction fund, as you would see that we have expended 4.5 million. 82% of our budget has been used for that. Our food service charges to date, we have expended 923,000, about 73% of that. And I'm looking for us to have a fund balance for our food service because this does not include also June receipts that we just had to submit. We have to submit that at the end of the month. So those receipts are still pending and coming in. Then we have our restricted funds. These are all of our grants. This is considering not our ESSER 3 funding, but this does have our ESSER 2 funding, and then other grants that we have received down the line, new grants that we also received in this past year, even recently. And there are encumbrances in that regard. So we decided to keep our encumbrances for our grants because our grants doesn't really run unless it ends at 6:30. It doesn't overlap. Overlap in the fiscal years doesn't matter fully in that regard, but some, depending on the agency, we like to keep the encumbrance for any expenditures that are set aside for that following year. So that's why you see more in the restricted funds. To date with encumbrance and year-to-date expenditures, we've expended about 3.5 million, 41%. But just to make you aware, with restricted funds, we have to expend the money up front first before we can even get reimbursed. And as something new that I've put in here, I never can know how to. So this gives us an overview, pretty much an overview of our funds with our revenue and expenditures that you can see and review overall. But I mean, looking at it closer. Any questions, comments?
I just have a question on Galena. Dr. Couch, how are we making out with the construction there? I mean,
We're behind schedule. We are still waiting for substantial completion on the HVAC. We are ready to award substantial completion to the kitchen and the cafeteria. Substantial completion was already awarded to the language support areas and the area where we added additional offices in the media center. So mainly the main thing that's outstanding is completing all the punch list and then also getting substantial completion to the HVAC.
thank you.
So they're rapidly, we awarded them an extension because of COVID. A lot of construction has been impacted by COVID.
Sure.
However, they're vastly approaching a point of where they're going to be assessed liabilities.
That's what I wonder. Are you confident that it'll be finished by the start of the school year? You'd like to be confident that that will happen?
I'd like to be confident,
Yeah.
but am I at this point? Not yet.
How will it impact some of the academies that are taking place at
They
Galena?
know that the academies start the first week of August.
Okay.
And so we have, I'll be at a better place to provide you with an update at the July 22nd meeting.
Okay, thank you. That was information only. Thank you, Ms. Stewart, for that. The next item on the agenda is the enterprise lease vehicle replacement. I see Mr. Wheeler's walking up as well.
Stand up with me, young lady. Thank you. Oh, good. Good evening, board members, Dr. Couch, new young man on the board. Good evening. Tonight, I bring before you the enterprise fleet management. The administration is requesting contract approval to piggyback fleet leasing and management services contract number 207-2816 through the interlocal purchasing system under Kent County government. Enterprise fleet management requires a minimum fleet size of 20 cars. Currently, Kent County Public Schools is under the required limit. Therefore, we are eligible to be included with the county program. Although Kent County Public Schools will be included under the county, billing and registrations will be noted as Kent County Public Schools. Summary. Attached, as you can see, I'm sorry.
Just click on the attachment.
Come on. Oh, they working. That's what I brought her up here for. Thank you. Making me look bad. Thank you. Attached is a proposal from Enterprise for a total of 6 2021 vehicles for an annual expenditure of $28,720 and $720.20 for 5 years. That includes 2 Chevy Equinox, 1 Ford Explorer, 1 Nissan Altima, 1 Nissan Sentra, 1 F-250 with a plow and salt spreader. This plan replaces a vehicle that is over 15 years old and is in need of a transmission. After working with Enterprise, trying to add a new vehicle, it was suggested that since the market is so good right now for used cars, that we totally turn in our fleet and get a new fleet of vehicles. So that's what I'm bringing before you this evening. The administration recommends board approval to piggyback fleet leasing management services contract number 2072816 through the interlocal purchasing system.
Okay,
Any questions?
could you speak a little bit more in terms of why this is the best recommendation?
Oh, sure. If you take a look at, we've got some estimates, and to fix the current truck with the snowplow and salt spreader on it, it's going to cost us probably $4,700 to about $5,000 to replace that transmission. If you look at this here, our current expenditure is $31,317. With replacing the new vehicles, it takes us down to $28,720.
So this results in a savings per month?
So this results in a savings per month and a savings over 5 years as well.
Any additional questions? Okay, as Mr. Wheeler noted, the administration is recommending board approval to piggyback fleet leasing and management services contract 2072816 through TIPS, the interlocal purchasing system. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion, we approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Johnson. Any additional comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 8C, Board Policy CC, Administrative Organizational Plan. Dr. Couch?
This is for information only. As you note, that when we go through an approval process for the board policies, it results in the first policy being, or the first read of the policy being information. This is no change to the policy itself. It's a change to the attachment, which is the organizational chart. So this is a recommended change to reflect what we currently have in place.
And
And
it
this
is
is for information only.
information only. Are there any questions while we are here?
I'm
So-
guessing, like you said, it's to our current staffing. That's what's sort of, yeah.
Right. It's our current staffing and also reflecting the add of the instructional specialists. You can go through and look at the various changes.
When was the last time there was a change?
We made a change about 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson?
So I want to be clear, just so, although we have these positions on here, that doesn't necessarily mean we're acting with all positions, right?
All of those positions.
Are currently filled.
Except for, yeah, you're right. They're in some cases, some are vacant.
But the intent is to fill them, correct?
Yeah, at this
Okay.
time.
Right.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay, the 8D, the last item in administrative services, is the donation Midshore Community Foundation.
Okay, we received notification last week of a grant that we received from Midshore Community Foundation. It was a grant of $2,000. This was in closing out their discretionary funds for FY21. The Grants Committee awarded $2,000 to Kent County Public Schools in support of mental health programs benefiting Kent County students. So as per our policy, I recommend that the board approve the $2,000 grant from Midshore Community Foundation.
Do we have a recommendation to approve the $2,000 grant?
I move that we approve the $2,000 grant from the Midshore Community Foundation to support mental health programs in Kent County Public Schools.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, second was
Sorry,
Ms. Sullivan?
second.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions?
I just want to ask Dr. Couch, do you know specifically how we would use that money?
We met briefly about that today. I think that it's still kind of open in terms of whether it's going to be in regards to training or purchasing of materials and supplies that would support the schools individually.
So when you say we, who is
Student
that?
Services is, the mental health
Okay.
personnel falls under Student Services, so we met about that today.
Right.
Okay. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the second public participation. Ms. Manley, do we have additional cards? Okay. The next item after that on the meeting agenda is the notification of our next meeting. The board will meet in a work session on Thursday, July 22nd,
At 5 o'clock.
2021 at 5 o'clock. I have it written down.
Okay.
4:30.
At 5 p.m.
to 4:30 for a closed session?
Oh, yeah, you know what? We made some changes to that, so that's not your fault.
Okay,
So if we could change that to beginning at 4:30, because we're anticipating that we may be hiring additional personnel, so we'd have a closed session at 4:30.
The board will meet on Thursday, July 22nd, 2021 at 4:30 p.m., starting with a closed session.
We'll start with an open session and then go into
Open
closed
session, then close,
Right.
thank you. Then we will move into our work session at 5 p.m.
Right.
The next monthly meeting of the Board of Education of Kent County will be held on Monday, August 9th, 2021, beginning at 5:30 p.m. with the open session. Open session will be immediately followed by the board members going into closed session. The open session will resume at 6:30 p.m. The work session and the monthly meeting will be located at the administrative building in the boardroom, this room, 5608 Boundary Avenue, Rock Hall, Maryland, 21661. The last item on the agenda is the administration is recommending approval to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a motion to do so?
Before we do that, Dr. Couch, I don't know that you do, but I'm just asking, just sort of announce how you foresee that work session going in terms of, I thought you said to us there would be some, we'd have our work session and then there would be some public input.
The public input is for the ESSER grant.
Oh, okay.
Which would begin at 6:30.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. McGee. Any comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is